Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 6. We're near the end here. Basically, just about 2.5 weeks left, which is exciting. And we've got a lot of really interesting stuff to keep us busy in these 2 weeks. We're moving on to another part of our discussion on logic. This is the one that I love. I really enjoy it. We've been talking about induction, and while this is kind of a complex subject, I think you did pretty well with it. So I appreciate that. Now building on that, we're moving into the notion of fallacies in argumentation. So if you think of the word itself, fallacy, you think false, bad, right? And so a fallacy is really an error or a flaw in our logic, okay, or in our argument. There's two different kinds. There's the formal fallacy, which is basically an error in the organization or the structure of your argument. We're going to focus more on what are known as informal fallacies. And informal fallacies are fallacies that are often somehow psychologically pleasing or emotionally charged, and so we know how emotion can really get the better of us. These are things that can lead us into making really bad arguments. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different kinds: fallacies of relevance. We're going to talk about some that are known as like fallacies dealing with language, more linguistic fallacies about how we actually phrase certain arguments. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to read the book and you're going to read the lecture notes, and it's going to give you a lot of examples of different kinds of fallacies. You're going to find pretty much right away that, oh my gosh, I encounter all these fallacies all the time because I commit them. And that's true, and I do as well. And so it's very important to understand these and to study them so that you can better understand how you shape your arguments, and you can make sure, or you can basically avoid, I guess, these kinds of fallacies. It's very hard, though. I mean, since these are emotional, emotionally powerful arguments or things we do with our argumentation, it is hard to avoid a lot of them, but it is very important. So think about since we are in kind of the election, the political silly season now with the election coming up, think about all the fallacies that you find spoken by political candidates, not just Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but members of Congress and different local elections that you see on the news, because look, every other commercial on TV now seems to be some sort of political ad, and you'll hear things like, my opponent wants to legalize all drugs, or doesn't worry about your kid getting hooked to drugs because this person agrees with marijuana legalization or something like that. That is a fallacy. That can be a variety of different fallacies. A straw man fallacy is one of them, which is where we take somebody's argument and we twist it and we make it sound much more extreme than it really is, and then we attack the extreme version of it. Or, I mean, if you think of just the presidential election, people are saying, they're kind of worrying and, fretting over, oh my gosh, we only have two choices. It's either Hillary or Donald, and if I like this one and I don't like that one, but what if I don't like either? Well, I don't have any real options. That can be seen as a false antithesis argument. No, you don't have two choices. It's not either or. There's other candidates, Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, or you don't have to vote for either one, or you can write in a candidate. So that is a very common fallacy, the false antithesis, the false negative, where it basically says you only have two options. Well, no, you don't. In many cases, you don't. People say, America, love it or leave it, or you're either with us or you're with the enemy. In most cases, it's not that stark, it's not that black and white, but it's something that somehow is emotionally pleasing, and we like to kind of try to think in black and white, when in reality, it's not always black and white. So those are a couple of examples of fallacies. Another one that I know some of you touched upon, very smartly, I might add, in the week 5 discussion on generalizations, was something known as the hasty generalization. This is where we draw as you can guess, a hasty generalization about a certain thing or a certain maybe group of people. So you think of something like, well, I live in the suburbs here in upstate New York, but if I went out to the country, I would say, oh man, all these country people, they've got all these problems with poverty and racism and blah 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 because they live in the country. And you could say the same thing about people who live in the city and say, oh, it's just all violence and people are just violent and aggressive. And well, those are hasty generalizations. I'm taking a couple of examples I might have seen from television or read in an article, or I met 2 or 3 people, and then I'm taking that, I'm making a blanket statement about a whole group of people. Um, I'm doing it hastily. I'm not really investigating this to determine whether or not I have really any grounding, solid grounding on which to make these statements. But you see where prejudices flow out of this very, very easily. Racism, sexism flows out of this very easily. And we trade in these kinds of things all the time without even realizing it. And all the more reason for us to stop, slow down, and analyze how we argue, how we craft arguments, because boy, these things are so easy to fall into. So this week, I think you're going to have a really good, very fruitful discussion in the discussion posts. Make sure that you get through, because since we're getting near the end, we're working on these final papers and everything. Make sure that you continue on with those. Go through the activities folder. Make sure that you're hitting on all the other points that you need to hit on to finish strong, since we're near the end. And as always, folks, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Send me an email or get me in office hours, and we'll see what we can do for you. So I hope things are going well, and we'll talk to you soon.